Hello, YouTube. This is Insane Monster, and we are here for part 3 of What If Deku Was the Son of Zalgo. Now then, before anything else, hit it. Okay, now then, we start this part where we see Izuku with Paris inside of his new house slash, I guess you could call it, unusual manor that he now lives and controls. As Paris has somewhat become his right hand as basically his head proxy, being the most reasonable out of the lot. As for what Paris is, he's essentially a living doll with a knife that can literally cut through anything. If you don't know who this is, please look in previous parts of this What If, where there will be a link to the webcomic that he comes from. But with that, let's continue. Paris states, "It seems as though Miss Sin has added members to of her proxies as of late." Zuko didn't really mind that. They were friends and allies. And he asked, "Is there something you want to ask?" As Paris states, "There are two individuals that I know are currently detained. They were, well, they are, in a sense, my siblings." As he looks at Paris, asking, "What do you mean?" Paris states, "Well, you see, I was made to be a monster. Though, despite that, I am obedient, as well as, well, what you would probably consider opposite of a monster, correct?" As Izuku does notice that Paris doesn't act irrational. In fact, it's the reason why he had him picked to be his right hand to help uh, coordinate the other proxies. As he states, "Yeah, so you were made, right?" As he states, "Yes. My creator, whenever he made, it would do the opposite. The two I am thinking of asking you to recruit as proxies might be helpful, but it's hard to describe what they do, but it's probably the least harmful out of all of our creators or out of all my other siblings, per se." As he asked, "What do they do?" He states that they are called the Darling Dolls, a pair that could be considered a pair of sisters, Darla and Dorothy, as they are dolls meant to be played. The reverse, due to the abilities of their creator, affected them to where instead of they are played with, they play with people by turning them into dolls. They don't physically harm them or anything like that. In fact, they take decent care of them, though a human being turned and treated as a doll has a tendency to cause some backlash. As he states, honestly, probably the most tame thing out of the other proxies we have here. So, what? They, they're stored away in the box like you are? Or were? Pear says yes. Apparently, Puppeteer has them as well. though has not decided on what to do about it. Izuku tells him to ask Puppeteer to let them free, and to have them set up to be proxies for him. And lastly, make sure that they know the rules and such. But before he left, he looked back, seeing Paris uneasy, thinking that there might have been some uncomfortable uh, situations between them. So he states one more thing: have Scarecrow be more or less their mentor for the time being, just to make sure they don't get into trouble. They're not allowed to do anything to innocents, but if it's a highly valued criminal somewhere in the world that happens to be for a job, they're free to do as they please. Just don't let them get too crazy with it, okay? We don't need a bunch of innocent people going missing and turned into dolls. As Paris states, considering that you're being generous with this, that they'll be allowed to do it at all, I believe they'll follow the rules just fine. As Paris is getting accustomed to this new lifestyle of his, Zuko leaves, saying goodbye to his mom and Scarecrow, who are watching TV on the couch. As for everybody else, his cousin Sadia, as well as Laughing Jack, are out on a job and are supposed to be coming back soon. As he heads out, he walks out of an alleyway where a portal where he opened up an opening to where his house was. Due to the fact that his house is currently within a dimensional gap between the upper realm, aka the human realm, and the mid realm. As he heads over to school, there is a large group of reporters that he is just trying to get through. And as they're berating him with questions about All Might, he states, sorry, I gotta go, and tries to avoid it. Once he gets in, he sighs a breath of relief, as he is just not comfortable with that, especially with them being so much in his face. Sitting down, Jiro walks up to him asking if he's okay. He states that he's fine, but those reporters are just so pushy. As Ida states, that is the nature of reporters. They have to push quite hard in order to get a story. As then Sen walks in looking just terrible. As C seems to have a much more, uh, a worse effect from the press. Being secluded from normal human society for so long has not prepared her from being ambushed by the people with cameras, mics, and such just shoved into her face. As Izuku asks if she's going to be okay, Sen remarks, it's fine. Just not used to all that. As Aizawa walks in, telling them to sit down, which they do. Afterwards, he tells them that they are going to be choosing a class rep, as he also follows up with that he doesn't care how it's done, that they should just get it over with, while he goes takes a nap. And with that, the process of voting begins. Like in canon, Izuku is picked to be the class rep, with Momo being the vice rep. As Bakugo is mad at this because he didn't even get to be the vice rep, let alone the class rep. With him yelling at who voted for him, Sen remarked, what, you really think someone was gonna vote for a hot head like you, causing Bakugo get even angrier, with Aizawa telling him to stop. Once that was settled, they went over to eat. As they begin to talk, Ida talks about his family and how they come from a long line of heroes, with Izuku being impressed about that. Though this is when the alarms went off, stating that there's an emergency. As students begin to run, they ask a third year what's going on, with him stating that that alarm means that there's an intruder on campus and that the entire time he's been here at UA for 3 years, this has never happened. As they try to get through, they get pushed around. As Izuku looks out the window seeing the press and getting annoyed about how far they went to literally break into UA. Causing him to transform, he uses his claws to dig into the wall to climb over towards the exit and roar using his sonic powers in order to get everybody's attention, telling them that it's just the press and that they should calm down, to act like they belong in UA. As they are scared seeing Izuku like this, they do understand what he's saying and calm down. After getting down, he shrinks back to his normal state, as his clothes are now tattered up, especially with two gaping holes on each side of his torso where his second set of arms came out. As he just sighs, remarking, ugh, now I gotta get a new uniform. After that, Izuku and the others just went home when school ended, though the UA faculty were very troubled because somebody with a destruction quirk turned their front gate into literal dust, which made them see it as a declaration of war. This did get around. This news did get around, as some of the other operators weren't really pleased about this. Back at the League of Villains hideout, where they were contacting some people as well as getting some things arranged for for their mission, Shigaraki asked if everything was set up, as the voice over the monitor stated yes, though there are some people that we'll be working with, and if things go south, Kurogiri will help them escape as well as help you. Now, do pay in mind to give them respect. These aren't what you'd call normal individuals. Also, the one leading them is called Drax. So, do keep your manners in mind as a portal opens up, revealing Kurogiri having having 6 people come out, including one with red eyes and long black hair, as well as some curly thorned horns sticking out of his head. He smirks, looking at Shigaraki, stating, "So, you're the one we'll be working with. My dad, as well as your boss, seem to have come to an agreement. So, I'm looking forward to working together." As Shigaraki states, "Just don't hold us back. We're aiming to kill All Might, after all." As as Drex smirks, stating, "Yes, and I have to admit, it's quite an ambitious goal to say the least." just makes me so excited. My father's followers came along with me to help in this, and we'll do what we can, as they do go over what the plan actually is. Back at Izuku's house, Jiro came along as they see that Jack and Sadia are actually back home. As Sadia welcomes Izuku home and states, "Oh, looks like you brought Jiro with you. How's it going?" As Zero states, "It's fine." As she's getting unusually comfortable with these individuals. As Zero sits down, before Izuku could, Paris calls to Izuku stating that the two that they were talking about are prepared. As he goes over, telling Zero to just hang out with his mom and Scarecrow and such, he goes over to a room where there are two pale looking small girls with long red hair. He kneels down, extending his hand, introducing himself. As they ask, "Why are we here?" He states, "Well, you're going to be my proxies. At least, I'd like you to be. There's only a few rules. One, you follow my orders. Two, you follow the rules of the contracts of the jobs you uh, will take. And three, I have heard about you turning people into dolls and taking good care of them. In that regard of what you can do, if the person you want to turn into a doll is a part of the contract that you'll take, then you're allowed to do as you please to them. Anybody else that isn't part of the contract, then it's a no-go. Understand?" As they look at him in surprise, stating, "You'll let us do it? But wait, contract?" As he stands up, realizes he hasn't introduced herself, she states, "I'm Dorothy." As the other one stands up, stating, "And I'm Darla." As Izuku smirks, stating, "Yeah, I know. Well, basically, it's kind of like bounty hunting. You guys go after the most evil people in the world, and if you think that you want to turn them into a doll to take care of them, then that's up to you. Though you're responsible for them. Understand? Anything goes wrong with them, and you'll be held responsible. You'll also be given a mentor." As they look over to Paris, being a little afraid, seeing that Paris might have had to put them in line a bit in the past, and that he might have been a bit rough with them. So he states, "Don't worry, they won't. Well, Paris won't be your. He won't be your mentor." Uh, as he gestures towards Paris to go get Scarecrow. He went out, and they continue to talk about what they'll be expected to do, as they understand and agree to it. As Scarecrow walks in, and Izuku introduces them, Scarecrow extends her hand and shakes theirs. As they ask, "What now?" Izuku states, "Well, now we form a proxy contract and I get you guys some rooms. Would you rather have separate rooms or do you want to share?" They stated that they would like to share their rooms, as he obliged, telling Scarecrow they sent the put them in a spare room. As the contract for them to be proxies was made, they went over to their new room and were said that they could decorate it however they liked, including the door. So they went ahead. Afterwards, they just ate, with the two darling dolls now sitting at the table, as they find it kind of weird but happy to be in this kind of environment now. The next day, they were told that they'll be leaving UA to go to a special training facility. As everyone got on the bus, they were talking about their quirks and how they could be as a hero. They remarked that some of their quirks aren't that flashy, but do have plenty of good uses, which is when Sue remarked, You know, Midoriya, your quirk can be kind of scary, but it's also pretty impressive. As, sorry, as Denki states, yeah, and it rocks, literally. You can literally destroy things with a double neck bass guitar. It's awesome. As he smiles, stating, Thanks. Once they stop, Aizawa introduces them to the Hero 13 who runs the USJ, which is a facility for training young heroes in situations of natural disasters. Now, with this, they begin to talk as Zuko felt a strange chill down his spine, as well as Sen, as they looked over and saw a warp gate opening. Sen remarked, uh, Mr. Aizawa, I think we have a problem. As he looks back, seeing that a ton of villains are flooding in. And some individuals seem to be familiar to Sen. And one individual that came out has a familiar feeling that Izuku can notice. He wants to say something, but he he can't. He's so nervous, and in front of everybody, he's not sure what to say. As Aizawa tells 13 to get the kids out, he puts on his goggles and jumps down. As they try to get out, Zuko and Sam are just standing there as Jiro grabs onto them, stating, Calm down. Need backup, so we got to go now. As they grit their teeth and agree with it. They don't know what exactly villains are doing working with people from the mid and underrealm, but it can't be good. But they are soon stopped by Kurogiri. As 13 tried to stop him, well, Bakugo and Kirishima went to attack, as they're just thinking, idiots! Which is when Kurogiri reveals that he's not harmed at all and warps everybody to different areas. Zuko does still end in the shipwreck zone. As for Sen, she ends up in the same area as Jiro, as they are fighting off the villains. Izuku is given a hand from Sue, who helps him onto the ship. As they look around and see that they're surrounded. Thinking about their situation, Izuku has a plan, though it would mean that he'd be left alone on the ship, but it would also mean that he could go full force on these guys without having to worry about Mineta or Sue. Mineta asks, What are you thinking? As he makes his guitar, saying that, well, my guitar burst part of this can vibrate things to the point that they explode. If I lessen it a bit, but spread it out more, I can vibrate the water that these guys are in to literally heat it up to boiling temperatures, forcing them out of the water. Once that happens, they'll probably be too exhausted to fight. Plus, they're probably the most deadly when in water. So we turn that water as a way of fighting against them, then we should win. As they do agree, but how are me and Sue supposed to get out of here and out of the way? As he grabs them, transforms, and jumps onto the top of the boat, he gives them instructions. As Sue grabs on to Mineta, and they set up for Izuku to literally throw them, stating, "You got this, Sue?" She states, "Yeah, I can use my frog abilities as well as my tongue to help with the landing," as he aims toward the wooded area near the steps and full on launches them. As they were going towards the trees, Sue shot out her tongue to swing around and then used her powerful legs to make a proper landing. As they hid into the bushes, trying to get around and see what's going on. Once that was taken care of, Izuku could begin his plan, busting out his demonic double neck bass guitar and begins playing. They're not sure what Izuku is doing, but they end up cutting the ship, though they soon realize that the water is actually starting to boil, and they are cooking a bit. As they hurry up and run, getting onto the shore, they are drastically overheated and end up passing out on the shore. So, nothing too serious, but they will need some time to cool down. While this is happening, Izuku realizes something is coming towards him. A long limbed giant demonic figure, this being Drax, who, unlike his father, whose power is somewhat evenly well rounded, his ability is more in terms of three aspects: his regeneration, his defense, and the ability to increase his body size, which makes him very dangerous. As he drops into the water, he states, "Well, looks like you are quite interesting, little brother." As he continues, stating, "Our father would like me to drag you back to the underrealm. He has plans for you." Reaching out, he is then met with a bunch of explosions and slices to his hand, caused by Izuku's sound abilities. As he states, "Not going to happen." He whistles with a magical aspect to it, somewhat of a call to arms that oh, that that as you might expect that operators have as a way to call their proxies. Due to this, an opening to his house appears in a secluded area of the USJ, as his proxy now begin to mobilize. Sen did the same thing, and they begin to move as well. For the time being, we'll halt on the typical aspects as we need to go look around at the USJ, as where Sen and Jiro, Momo, and Denki are. They're fighting off the villains and doing quite well. until a certain individual with centipede like markings on her body began to leap off of her skin and attack, jumping back as Sen uses her tendrils to attack these things. This individual is called Hype, a woman with, as I said before, markings across her body that come off to act like centipede like tendril things and can cause quite a bit of harm. As she states, great, just great. And alongside her is actually two people, one with purplish skin, as well as another with an axe in his head as he pulls it out, stating, sorry, kid, but gotta do what we gotta do. As the purple skinned woman pulled out dual metal sickles, as these individuals were a man called Alex, also known as the Bleeding Man, and Eve, another individual who, like Alex, are considered undead beings. As the fight continued with this, Genki is Alec and missing from shocking the other villains. The villain that tried to grab him was taken out by Sen pretty quickly, but that leaves Momo, Jiro, and Sen versus Hype, Eve, and Alex, which could be going better. But as Momo's about to be sliced by Eve, Eve is then sent back by a man with orange goggles and a face mask stating, sorry, can't let you do that. As a large red dog with human teeth falls up behind. And as Hype tries to attack Jiro, her centipede tendril is then pierced through by Scarecrow, stating, yeah, sorry, not gonna happen. As they begin to fight, fending them off. This goes pretty well, as they're forced back. Now, we switch over to the landslide zone where Todoroki is, who is dealing with the villains pretty easily, though has just met with a bit of a troublesome opponent after learning that they're here to kill All Might. As purple ice begins to just form and shooting towards Todoroki, he creates his own ice to block it, revealing a dark-skinned individual with markings on his face that are glowing purple. Not bad, but not as good as my ice, as ice claws begin to form around his arms. Name's Damien, and I'll be taking your head. As they begin to fight, Damien is then kicked in the face by a girl with blue glowing marks on her face that look similar to Damien. As he states, sorry, can't let you do that. As Damien looks, stating, Anastasia. As he's getting annoyed. Though, from his back, he notices that strings are now attached to him, and he's sent flying. As Anastasia walks up to Todoroki, bowing, stating, sorry, for just barging in, but we're reinforcements. So, do you mind helping us deal with him? As Todoroki has no reason to question that who these people are, considering they just helped him deal with this weird guy who has ice powers. As they begin their fight. Now we switch over to Bakugo and Kirishima, who are currently pinned against the wall as they are caught by these weird insect-like appendages coming out of a guy's back. This guy, who seems to be somewhat corpse-like and covered in blood, as he states, "Oh, your heads are gonna be tasty." This being Roger Wilson, William, I believe, who has a bit of a parasite in his body that enjoys eating people's heads. As he is just anticipating how good their heads are going to taste, he is then cut by a girl with a clock in one of her eye sockets. Reeling in pain, he doesn't have long to react until a long, stretched out arm covered in black and white grabs hold of him and sends him flying. As the arms reel back to their owner, it reveals a black and white clown, stating, "Ah, I don't really get to do this kind of thing that often, but this is a lot of fun. Let's hope you can put up a decent fight." As Clockwork explains that they're back up for them, as Bakugo just scoffing, stating, "Whatever, at least you got that freak's things off of me." As their fight went off. As we head back to Izuku, who is fighting Drakes, as he goes up to his face, using One for All and taking his demonic double neck bass guitar, slamming it into his forehead, sending him back, officially knocking him out and causing him to revert back into his human state. On landing, he's relieved, though that doesn't last forever, as he sees that Aizawa has one of his arms broken by the Nomu. As he sees this, he gets angry, and then uses the bass portion to focus the sound and cut off the Nomu's arms. Glitching forward with One for All, he punches the Nomu, sending it flying back. Grabbing Aizawa, he's worried about him looking at his wounds. Though the Nomu has already regenerated and glitches towards Izuku, about to punch him, only to find that the Nomu's arm is sliced off again, this time by a pale person with black hair and an odd knife that seems to have smiles with very sharp teeth on the blade, stating, "Sorry, can't let you hurt my boss," pointing the blade at the monster, who is just regenerating it again. As this is where we're at, we see All Might burst in due to the fact that Ida was able to get out and warned UA, as he goes down and grabs Aizawa, checking his status, alive and conscious but with a really messed up arm. As Sue and Mineta walk up, checking him as well, as they come from out the bushes. With this, All Might acts as Izuku, Sue, and Mineta to take Aizawa. As they do what he said, they begin walking up the steps. As he looks back and the fight begins. So Izuku knows that he's used his power already too much today, as he gives Aizawa to Sue and Mineta, asking them to keep going. As he looks back, stating, "Give him a hand, okay? The Paris." He shook his head, stating, "Yes, he's safe." As they're confused about who this guy is, as Izuku blitzes towards the Nomu and slams the guitar in its head with full force one for all, sending it flying, stating, "This thing can regenerate and shock absorption, but its speed and strength are insane. And I already know you've been pushing yourself too much today. So, I'm going to give you some backup." As All Might really isn't going to complain about this, though asked about the other students. He states that, "Don't worry, me and Sin's proxies are scattered about helping them out. There seems to be a couple of Zalgo's people here. We might have to tell my classmates about this mess." As Izuku is not looking forward to the prospect of this. As All Might states, "We'll get to that later. Let's deal with this monster first." As the fight begins again, Izuku used his sound ability to cut up the Nomu every chance he get, as well as explode him by vibrating his molecules to the point that they just explode. With this, All Might's able to have an easier time with it as they go in together for an all-out smash, sending the Nomu flying through the dome of the USJ. With that shaking, Drake's is awake now, being woke up from that crash. As he looks and sees that the Nomu's gone and things are going to hell. As he signals to Kurogiri that they gotta get out of here. Kurogiri grabs Shigaraki first and portals all the other proxies of Zalgo away. With Izuku looking at Drake, Drake states, "I'll be back for you. Sooner or later, I'll drag you to father." With that taken care of, everybody was all good. Izuku saw Jiro was fine and was relieved. The proxies went back through the openings that were created by their operators into their basically their home base, so that they could return quietly and away from the police. As for the darling dolls, they might have grabbed some villains, though they didn't really know anything. But the individuals that they did grab were very, very, very bad. They did commit some very serious crimes before joining up with the League, and were wanted. So, all was good in that front. As everything calmed down a bit, there were some questions that needed to be answered. The students were told that they would be given a week off after this incident, as the school needed to be investigated in order to help patch any leaks. Though before anything, Sen and Izuku were taking the Principal Nezu's house. Well, his office at least, so yeah. And they had a talk. Nezu already knew about the unusual circumstances, as he isn't human, so he can be trusted with things that normal humans can't. Especially considering he doesn't particularly find the humans very fond. Especially whenever he's the one performing a practical exam on a student. So yeah, little revenges for him. As they talk and discuss the entities that were attacking them. As Nezu was filled in properly about who they were, he sighs, remarking, "It seems as though we'll have to fill in your class." Not feeling very up to this, but knowing that they had to. After that, Class 1A was gathered as they needed to explain some things. As they stated that Izuku is half human and Sin isn't human. As things were discussed, and they filled in that a number of those beings that were taken away by the warp villain Kurogiri were sent by Izuku's father to capture him. With Bakugo yelling, "Okay, but what the hell? What? How is this possible?" Izuku states, "Well, given how the world is now, someone not being human could literally walk down the road looking not human and nobody would find it strange. You do know that, right?" As knowing about some of their classmates, as well as the other people in UA, how some of them look, it is understandable. As this is kind of a bomb dropped on them, they see that Jiro really isn't shocked by this. As Uraka states, "Jiro, did you see?" Said, "Yeah, I know. I was shown a while ago. It's complicated, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing, I guess." As she doesn't really understand how it works and doesn't question it that much. She only knows that they go after the worst people in the world, and that's all she needs to know, at least for her. After this, Bakugo does figure that it does make some sense. And they are confused and shocked by this, but as Sen and Zuko are worried, Kirishima walked up, extending his hand, stating, "Thank you. You guys sent that clockwork woman and that clown guy Jack to help us, right?" They shook their heads as he smirked, stating, "And we're all good. You guys did everything you could to help us, to help protect us. I don't see you as bad people. It may not be entirely human, but I'm cool with you guys." As the other students followed suit. Though it didn't take long for Mineta to put two and two together and state, "Wait, does that mean Sen looks like the Slender Man?" Because as she scratched the back of her head, laughing, stating, "He's my dad," shocking the entirety of Class 1A as they yell, "What?" And this is where we'll be ending this part. I do hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time, and I'll see you guys later.